Amazon doesn't care what category you pick if your book doesn't match. They'll move it or drop your bestseller tag without asking. And if they do, your visibility is going to tank. As self publishers, the last thing you want to do is lose the race right before the finish line. But that's exactly what I see so many authors doing when they list their book on Amazon. I've torn it all apart, looked at it as a marketer who's generated 8 figures in sales over my career, and not as the author I am, who's getting emotionally connected to my book. And isn't that all of us? I've broken it all down in this video. So you'll know exactly what levers and what elements you need to activate to maximize your book sales and your book's potential. So here's how to stay accurate so your book sticks. Amazon doesn't rely solely on your category picks. They scan your entire listing and even the content inside your book. Here's what they check: your chosen categories in the KDP dashboard, your title and subtitle, your book description, your keywords, and the actual content that is within your book. If any of those don't align with the category, they're going to flag that. And they don't ask for permission, and they just go ahead and remove you from the category, or worse, strip your bestseller rankings altogether. So let's look at these elements closely and see what the do's and don'ts are, plus the best practices to maximize your book's potential. Here's what Amazon checks when you list your book for sale and examples of how each one affects whether or not your book gets found and purchased. Let's look at categories first. If your book's entitled Love Redeemed, a clean Christian romance, and one of the 3 categories you choose is erotic experiences, because you think ranking high in that category is achievable, odds are Amazon's going to remove your book from that category. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that analyzing and taking a look at and being strategic about your categories isn't important, because that's a recipe for defeat. For example, let's say you wrote a romance novel. If you pick romance general, you're competing with thousands and thousands of books. But if your story is specifically about single dads, you might go romance subcategory single fathers. That's more targeted and it's going to increase your chances of ranking. So picking the right category impacts so much, whether it's your book being seen by the people who should be interested in your book, to its ability to reach the bestseller list. Choose the category that fits your book and gives you a realistic shot at ranking high. That's the key viewpoint you want to take with your categories. Now let's look at titles and why they matter. Your title and subtitle, in theory, can't be wrong, but for most books, there are better and worse versions of a title. And too many authors fail to acknowledge your title's number one purpose, which is to make your book appealing to the readers who are interested about your topic. For example, a title like Broken Wings, that's catchy and nice sounding, but it's kind of vague. Compare that to Broken Wings, PTSD survival memoir from an Army medic. With a title like that, Amazon knows exactly what your book is about and who would be interested in it. Your title and subtitle work a lot like a search term. If they're too broad or unclear, Amazon won't be clear as to what your book is about. This negatively impacts Amazon's ability to recommend your book. So don't fall in love with your title until you've taken all of this into account. I'm curious, if you're writing a book, do you have a title yet? If so, let me know down there in the comments. And if this type of approach to self-publishing, looking at it from a real marketing aspect, seems helpful to you, put book down there in the comments and I'll share my self-publishing roadmap, what I'm using right now on my pathway to self-publishing. Now let's look at the next part of Amazon's listing, your description. The description is where a lot of authors take their foot off the gas and often cripple their book's potential. On Amazon, your book's description does 2 things. It edifies the other elements you've included to Amazon, so they know who should be interested in your book. And the other major factor about the description, it moves people who are interested in this topic from thinking about buying your book to actually becoming customers. Let's look at a couple of examples. If your description says this is a thrilling novel about love and loss. Now here's another version for that same book. After a tragic car crash, taking her fiancé, Emma returns to her coastal hometown only to discover the secret he died protecting. Now, Amazon's algorithms scan your description, and generic copy gets ignored. Words that are generic, words like thrilling in that example, I mean, we're all authors and we're all thrilled by our books, right? So it doesn't tell Amazon really anything. Instead, when you give specific story elements and genre signals, what you've done is help them find the right readers for your book. This is why it's important to know your genre, speak their language, so you can write a description that's properly signaling the key alignment that your book and those readers have. And if it speaks to those folks in the genre, you're going to get more sales. Now, keywords are the next thing I want to talk about. There's been keyword elements in both the title and the description. But when we take a deeper dive, it's important to understand what these best practices are. Here's a bad keyword, inspiring. Now, for the same book, a good keyword might be a self-help book for women recovering from divorce. Now, you get 7 keyword slots, so being intelligent and strategic here is really important. You must do your best to select 7 phrases your ideal reader would type into Amazon's search bar looking for more information, looking for a book. Sticking with our example, nobody's searching for help me become inspired, right? But a woman who's struggling through a divorce might use our one good search term we had. And let's look at 6 more key search phrases for that same mythical book. You could have emotional healing after divorce for women. You could have starting over after divorce for women. Christian divorce recovery for women, single mom life after divorce, how to rebuild confidence after divorce, women's guide to divorce recovery and self-worth. Now, do you see each one of these targets what a real person might search for when they're looking for emotional support or practical help during or after a divorce? They combine audience, topic, and intent. All things Amazon looks for when matching up search queries and the books that they want to show folks. Amazon uses those phrases to surface your book in search results. So this is key to get it right, and it needs some thought, and you need to, again, look at it from the perspective of that person searching for your book. Last but certainly not least, Amazon looks at the content of your book. For example, if your keywords include clean Christian romance, but your book has profanity and there's no faith elements at all in there, Amazon might suppress it or flag it for misrepresentation. They check your interior file for consistency with all your metadata, which is all those other things we were talking about. Misleading titles or misleading keywords or categories, all of those things will lead to your book being removed. The only question is how long it's going to take. Why play that game? Each of these parts work together. Miss one, and your book is harder to rank or to find. Using all 5 intentionally and do it right, and Amazon will do more of selling than you could imagine for your book. Now let's take a look at some other elements on Amazon, some other things to make sure your book gets found and in your readers' hands. Let's go look at this video right now. I'll see you over there.